So more than anything else, cultural studies as a whole is concerned with the relationship between power and culture. And cultural studies tries to examine the way in which the popular culture of a society reinforces the power of certain dominant elites, and how this culture reinforces the existing structure of society, how media may encourage people to accept certain forms of inequality as natural, fair, and just. But similarly, cultural studies also examines the way in which, at certain moments, popular culture may challenge the power of those in charge. For instance, how some hip hop or rap music calls attention to the issues of police brutality, racial discrimination, and profiling, and the problems that lower income racial minorities face in the inner cities in society. Right? So again, cultural studies examines the way in which the popular culture of a society either reinforces or challenges the power of certain dominant elites and the existing structure of society. Now, within cultural studies, there are three main types of research, and this slide briefly describes each of those three types of research, each which focus on a different aspect of media. Textual analysis are studies that focus on media content, right? And the goal of textual analysis is to analyze media content with an eye to identifying what are some of the core ideas and values represented in that media content. For instance, the scholar Susan Douglas has done a lot of research, a lot of textual analysis of how women are presented in popular culture. And some of her most recent work examines how women are represented in reality TV shows like The Bachelor or the Real Housewives series, and so on. Douglas argues that reality TV tends to represent women and females in very unflattering ways, that women are presented as obsessed with their appearance. They tend to all look very similar, that they tend to adopt a white European conception of beauty, tend to be very concerned with being thin. They're concerned with pleasing the males in their lives. The women, the females on reality TV shows tend to compete with one another, getting into what Douglas calls cat fights, and that we rarely see lesbians in reality TV shows. So the point here is that Douglas is engaging in this kind of textual analysis by looking at a particular genre of TV show, to figure out what are the underlying ideas and values in that show with respect to gender. Now, another main approach to cultural studies is what's referred to as audience studies. It's also referred to as reception studies. Audience studies, as the name suggests, is focused on how people make sense of media content. How do they interpret media content? Now, the way audience studies is conducted is usually through open-ended interviews with people that consume certain types of media content. And one famous example of this type of audience study was conducted by Janice Radway, who examined how women read romance novels, right? And Radway and her interviews with all of these women found that the women tended to identify with a powerful heroine in the novels, right? That these women tended to really relax and have their own private space away from their families, reading these romance novels. That they were a form of escapism for housewives and mothers. A major question for audience studies is ultimately, how do people interpret the media content of a TV show, a film, or a book? And one of the main questions comes down to this: do people interpret media content in ways that support the legitimacy of the existing system and the power of dominant elites, or do people interpret media content in ways that are very radical and challenge the power of elites in government and business? And that's a very provocative question that's at the heart of audience studies research. The last main type of cultural studies work is what's referred to as political economy studies. All right, these types of studies, these political economy works, as the name suggests, examines how political and economic factors shape the types of media that we have in our society. So, for instance, political economy works examine the role of large corporations in producing commercial media today. As we've talked about throughout this class, some scholars have pointed to the role of companies like Time Warner, Disney, and News Corp in producing media in a range of different media sectors. Political economy studies also address ethical and social issues, raising really provocative questions about whether or not there is a problem in a democratic society when you have such tight concentration of media ownership. So, for instance, scholars like Robert McChesney raise concerns about this concentration, arguing that as you have fewer corporations owning more media outlet, that really diminishes diversity and democracy, because then you have fewer independent media outlets in society, and that you wind up having greater conformity in terms of the ideas that are conveyed in your popular culture. The argument here is that the views that you get from all of the media outlets owned by Time Warner are increasingly similar. Political economy is also concerned with advertisers and the way in which advertising may lead to certain forms of censorship in news and entertainment media. For instance, looking at how news organizations may be reluctant to do stories that are critical of the interests of a particular advertiser. So again, cultural studies has these three different approaches to examining media: textual analysis, that examines the content of media; audience studies, that examine how people interpret and make sense of media content; and political economy, that focuses on the parties that are actually responsible for the production and distribution of media, and the way that the broader economic system, in this case capitalism, shapes and constrains media in certain ways. One concept that is central to work in the area of cultural studies is this idea of the public sphere, This was a concept developed by Jürgen Habermas, who was a really prominent German philosopher. The public sphere, as he described it, is any space in society where people are free to express views and ideas and debate issues related to politics, government policies, current events. Habermas argued that the public sphere is really essential for a healthy democratic society. And that makes sense because here the argument is that in order for democracy to work, the citizens of that democracy have to be engaged in an ongoing discussion and dialogue about current issues, political issues, and so on. And the public sphere is the space where citizens in that society can get together and talk about and debate important issues that their society is addressing. Now, Habermas argued that in history, this public sphere originated in England and in France in the late 1600s and 1700s in places like coffee houses and bars where people got together to have this rambunctious, open, unconstrained debate and dialogue about important social and political issues. Habermas and other scholars have examined what types of public sphere exist in our contemporary society and whether or not that public sphere is really healthy and well developed. And one of Habermas's concerns was that in contemporary society in the US and other Western societies, he worried that the expansion of power by business and government has really threatened the healthy development of a public sphere. Right? For instance, Habermas was concerned that as more of our media were owned by and controlled by big business, that there'd be less of an opportunity for this kind of free-flowing discussion about ideas because of the worry that business owners would act as a kind of censor limiting the range of ideas presented on media outlets owned by those businesses. There's also the worry about government and about as our society has grown, there's the worry that government also in certain instances acts as a censor limiting the range of debate and the range of ideas presented in public spaces and the public sphere. And I guess this is a question for us today, thinking about our society as it exists. Can we say that there's a healthy public sphere today? Do these large media conglomerates have too much control and influence over our media? Or can we say that our idea of a public sphere has been transformed and enlarged by new media, the internet, Facebook? Are these digital media a new improved form of public sphere where people are able to engage in this dialogue about important issues that are taking place in our society?